Have you ever wondered what's really going on inside a Montessori classroom? I mean, really. Well, it might not be what you think. We're about to dive into one of its most powerful and, honestly, most misunderstood ideas. It's a totally fair question, right? Why would this famous educational method have little kids spending so much time on tasks that, let's face it, look a lot like household chores? Is it just about keeping the place tidy? Well, the answer to that question, it's kind of the secret to the entire system. Because what looks like a simple chore is actually something so much deeper. We're about to reframe how you see these activities, probably forever. Okay, first thing we have to do is just forget the word chore. These activities are meticulously designed exercises. Think of them as weightlifting, but for the brain. They're building the essential cognitive muscles a child needs long before they can even think about tackling reading, writing, or math. And this, right here, gets to the absolute heart of it. Maria Montessori herself said it best. The goal isn't to create a perfectly clean room, it's to create an independent child. Every single one of these little tasks is a deliberate step toward that freedom. So, if the lesson isn't really about getting the shoes shiny, what is the real lesson here? Let's break down exactly what skills are being built piece by piece. You see, it all boils down to these 4 pillars. Every single practical life activity is engineered to develop one or even several of these core traits. This is not an accident. It's the entire point. They aren't just learning to pour water. They are learning how to concentrate. They're learning to coordinate their hands and eyes, to understand sequence and order, and ultimately to rely on themselves. Okay, so that's the theory, but what does this actually look like in practice? This is where it gets incredibly tangible and, pretty amazing. What's so powerful here is the gap between the action and the real outcome. So we see a child polishing a little brass bell, but what's actually happening in their brain is intense concentration training. We see them pouring water from one pitcher to another, but what they're really doing is mastering the fine motor skills they're going to need to hold a pencil. And get this, there's a great real-world example of this. A teacher watched a little boy who came back to the same brass polishing activity for days on end. His goal wasn't to get a gleaming object. You could tell he was driven by this deep internal need to master the process, to deepen his own focus. The polishing was just the tool he was using to train his mind. And what about responsibility? There's a story of a group of children who, after finishing their snack, just cleaned up. They wiped the table, they swept the floor, put everything away, and not a single adult told them to, and they were just 4 years old. That's what happens when responsibility is something you learn through action, not just something you're told to have. And this right here, this is the bridge. People often ask, okay, but when do they learn their letters? Well, this is how they're learning. Activities like pouring and spooning and sorting, they aren't a distraction from academics. They are the direct preparation for them. You simply can't write well if your hand doesn't have the strength and control. And this is where that control gets built, one pour at a time. So when you put all these pieces together, what kind of person, what kind of learner actually emerges from this whole process? Well, the results are pretty profound. First off, you get genuine confidence. And this isn't the kind of confidence that comes from someone just telling you good job. It's that deep, unshakable confidence that comes from successfully mastering a real-world task. It's the pride of knowing, deep down, I did that, all by myself. Next, you get a real sense of responsibility. It starts small with caring for their own stuff and their own space, but it expands outward. Suddenly, they're caring for the classroom plants, for pets, and eventually for the other people in their community. And then there's discipline. But this isn't the kind of discipline that's forced on you from the outside. It's an internal drive, something that's cultivated by seeing a task through from the very beginning to the very end. It's the ability to focus, to persist, and to feel that amazing satisfaction of completion. And it all leads right back here to the ultimate goal, independence. That phrase, I can do it myself, is maybe the single most powerful phrase in a child's development. Practical life is the curriculum that makes that phrase a reality. So what's the big picture here? Now that we've seen all this, let's redefine what practical life really means. When it comes right down to it, practical life is not a list of things to do. It's a foundational process. It's a training ground for the mind and for the will. It is the absolutely essential bridge that a child has to cross to get to all other kinds of learning. And that leaves us with a final thought to chew on. We put so much emphasis on teaching our kids what to learn, the letters, the numbers, all the facts. But what if the whole point of these simple activities, from pouring water to polishing a shoe, is to teach something far more important? How to become a person who can learn anything